Welcome back to Lacie's Lineup, College Football Edition. And this last weekend did not disappoint, and I am ready to break it down with you guys. From some barn burners, if you're not sure what that is, it's pretty much keeping you on your edge of the seat until the very end, up into major blowouts. And we had some big injuries this weekend that can impact some players and some teams moving forward. So we'll see if there'll be any shakeup with that. But it looks to be a strong week of football, and I am ready to break it all down. So let's not waste any more time. Kickoff to college football starts right now. All right, we got to start with the big noon game. College game day was there. It was supposed to be a big rival game, and it didn't disappoint. I mean, it was a barn burner type of game. But let's talk about what happened in this game. You had LSU, number 16, going against South Carolina. SEC matchup. It's always proven to be a battle, especially in South Carolina. I mean, their crowd gets rowdy. And it proved to be a distraction for LSU at the beginning of that game. Anyone that started that game and maybe turned it because they thought that it wasn't going to be a good game, it slowly became, because South Carolina came out firing. They got an early lead. Things were going their way. You had quarterback Sellers. He's referred to as the goggle guy, but interesting fact, he wore contacts in this game. And I wonder if that became a factor for him because people were buying his goggles. I mean, it was flying off the shelf because he's a great player. He was making a lot of moves. He was moving. He was extending plays. His team was rallying around him. And South Carolina could do no wrong up until right before halftime. An unfortunate injury. Sellers was running with the ball and landed, and his ankle rolled, and he hobbled off. He goes into the locker room at halftime, and we don't know what to expect when he comes out. And unfortunately, they tried to tape it, and they tried to get him going, but he could not go. So he had to be benched, and they put in an Ashford that you could tell just didn't get a lot of reps that week or hadn't been with the number one team very much. He was rattled, and they could not get going. Defense tried to keep him in this game. I mean, it came down to the end. Nessmeyer for LSU struggled for a long time, but he has the experience. He has the knowledge. You know, he comes from a coach's kid, and he kept his poise at the end, which ultimately is why LSU rallied back from behind in a hostile environment, and they won in those last minutes of the game. It was a game to watch. Congrats to LSU. It's very unfortunate about Sellers. I think that's going to be a big problem moving forward with South Carolina. But without their quarterback, they just fell short at the end. LSU reclaims that victory, a huge SEC win on the road, and hopefully gets LSU going back in the right direction. Now, LSU, you've been calling for Kelly's head not to be your head coach. He's the wrong fit. Does this win change your mind, or is Kelly seeing his last season here at LSU? Next up, we got my Sooners. They squeaked by with this. I know the score seemed like we had it handled for the most part, but we did not look good for a second week in a row, and it's got this OU fan very worried and concerned since we're about to go into a very heavy SEC schedule, starting with Tennessee next week, which we'll get to that in a second. But OU had Tulane back at their house. Another thing that I don't like about OU is that we have our first four games are at home, and our road test isn't going to be tested until week 5 in Auburn. So I don't know who put that schedule together, but I'm not happy with how it's kind of going for our first year in the SEC. But let's get back to Tulane. Tulane is a team that can be scary. If you let them hang with you, they're going to hang. And OU is very injured right now. I don't know, for anyone that follows OU, you guys will know this, but we had our third string lineman in. Only have Burks is the only wide receiver in for us right now. Hopefully we'll get Anderson and Anthony back next week. Farouk got out week 1 because of a foot injury, and we won't see him until at least halfway through the season. But we are very banged up. To be this early in the season and to be banged up like we are right now makes this OU fan very worried about the schedule ahead of us. But we did pull it out. Jackson Arnold, still a mediocre performance. He did not impress me again as a long OU fan who's had the Baker Mayfields and, Jalen Hurts for a year and Caleb Williams. He just does not fit our DNA of a quarterback right now. He is more of a pocket player. They try to call him a double threat that he can run. He did show, it was funny when I was watching the game, I was like, he is not a double threat. And then all of a sudden he started running more. But it's not quick. He isn't seeing the field. He's not doing all his check downs. It seems like he's very nervous. To be a 5-star heavy recruit, we were very excited about him. And right now, it just doesn't seem like he's gotten comfortable. Doesn't seem like he's found his way yet. I'm hoping that we're going to see a much better Jackson Arnold, or if we don't have our quarterback, especially as injured as we are right now, it is going to be a very, very long season. But we did. Defense still coming in strong. They were sketchy at the beginning. They came in big at the end. They saved us once again this week. And we move on from Tulane. At least we're 3-0 going in. But this week, guys, this is Tennessee. Tennessee at home. I know we're at home, but Tennessee has been looking very, very impressive, and they are not going to let down on us at all. I mean, some people are saying that this Tennessee game is a bigger factor than the OU-Texas game. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with that, but Tennessee is a big test for us. And if we're still injured and we look like we have the past 2 weeks, OU fans, I'm sorry to tell you, it will not be good. So praying for a miracle. We're going in at home as the underdog, but I like being an underdog in a lot of cases because I think it helps you and kind of the pressure off you. But Tennessee's a big test. Do we win against Tennessee? Definitely not going to be the Tulane we played this week. So I hope I'm reporting good news next week with my OU Sooners, but it is going to be a battle. So good luck, Sooners. Let's get this one. The last game I want to talk about is Georgia versus Kentucky. This was another big SEC matchup. Georgia being the number 1 in the nation right now and trying to defend that title. They went into a hostile Kentucky environment. Kentucky isn't ranked very high, but they always give you a great game. It's a hostile environment. It's an SEC road, game. And Georgia went in and looked awful. I mean, they might have been looked as awful as OU, but they were also playing a credible team where OU, no offense to Tulane, but it wasn't the Kentucky in the world. So they went in and it was just another type of barn burner, low scoring game, which is very surprising with these teams because they normally produce really big numbers. But Carson Beck, very mediocre, didn't do anything. Etney, transferred from Florida, looking to be a big impact for Georgia, and he just did okay. I mean, at the end of the day, Kirby Smart, which is Georgia's head coach, he was happy to walk away with a win. It was 13-12, very boring, not a lot going on. But they kept it close the whole time. It just was back and forth, not a big plays. Defense obviously won these games. They created the turnovers and they did what they were supposed to do. But from two teams that usually give us pretty good highlights, I mean, Georgia usually makes ESPN's top 10. Nothing was there. It was like you just had to watch to see who walked away from this mess of a game. But Georgia did it. They pulled it off 13-12. But it didn't help them to stay number 1 because they did drop, and Texas is your new number 1. But Georgia doesn't look as dominant as they have in the past. It's just a crazy, I don't know, with the SEC and all the movements, but Georgia, not impressive to me. They get the win, they move on. I still think they're a great team, but not as dominant as they've been in the past. So, Georgia, you need to wake up because the road's only going to get harder from here. All right, Lacie's lineup final thoughts. Not a lot more to discuss. We had a lot of teams that really didn't play anybody this week, so it was dominating performances. You had Alabama win big over Wisconsin. Missouri did squeak by over Boston College, which was a little surprising. Normally, Missouri would take care of business better than that. We had two in-state rivals, but the better teams dominated, so there wasn't much to talk about there. Oregon wins big over Oregon State, and Utah wins big in their in-state rival. So Notre Dame did bounce back after their embarrassing loss to Northern Illinois last week, but they did a dominating performance over Purdue. But, I mean, they put up 62 points, so that's impressive to talk about. The only other one, Texas, I mean, the biggest news about them is they are the number 1 seed now. They did jump Georgia because Georgia just did not dominate Kentucky like they should have to maintain that number 1 spot. But Texas goes in UTSA, not really anybody to talk about. But the biggest thing to talk about with Texas is Quinn Ewers, who is a Heisman favorite this season, did go down with an abdominal strain. So not sure really what all that entails. They kind of kept that a little close by. So Quinn Ewers, could that be a factor for Texas? They have Manning, and he seems to pick up right where Quinn drops off. So I don't think it hurts them too bad. But you do have Quinn, who is on the injured list this week. They do play, I think it's Louisiana Monroe. Not a lot. I don't know. I think it's probably a good week to rest Quinn if he is struggling with an injury and let Manning go because they'll be just fine. But Texas hit a couple of injuries. We'll see if they can bounce through that or navigate through that. But Texas is your number 1 this week. I hate to say it as an OU fan. Hopefully we can knock them off when we play them, OU Texas, in a couple of weeks. But Texas is the one to beat at the moment. So we'll see how it pans out. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys so much. It's fun always breaking down, especially college football. There's so much to discuss and so little time to be with you guys on it. So I might be coming in for a couple surprises if there's some big news that I just want to do, some short films that I'll do with you, but I'll always keep you in the loop, so no worries there. Until then, I hope you enjoy another great week of football. We are starting to get heavy into the SEC, so we should have some better matchups coming up, especially my OU Tennessee. Make sure you watch, and prayers up. But if you like this video and you want to see more, make sure you like and subscribe. I enjoy it. It's my passion, and I'm so appreciative to share it with you guys. Until next time, your girl is signing off.